Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Papagaya English, and this is our fifth session. In this session, we're going to talk about multiple choice questions. Before starting the course, I would appreciate if you subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and if you like my videos, like them and leave your comments. All of them will help me to improve the quality of my courses. Now, let's start our today's session. Multiple choice questions. The multiple choice task type consists of a mix of questions and sentences to complete. In both cases, there are four options to choose from. Some sets of questions will focus on one paragraph or part of the text. Sometimes it will be stated that answer to a multiple choice questions according to a specific paragraph. But sometimes you have to choose some keywords and then look for the relevant part of the text. So we can conclude that sometimes it would be easy to find the relevant part of the text, and sometimes you have to spend more time and it would be a little bit more of a challenge. But overall, the questions are in order. Okay, the question follows the order of the text. Now let's start our tips. Tip number 1. A useful strategy is to use the keywords in the question stem or synonyms of them to help you identify the correct part of the text. Read the sentence or sentences carefully. Think of your own answer to the question and see which of the options matches it the closest. If you don't manage to find the relevant part of the text, as a last resort, choose signals, keywords from your options. Sometimes it would be good to use these kinds of strategies. And when you are unable to find the relevant part of the text, just read your options and they will help you to find the relevant part of the text. Let's go to our next tip. Tip number 2. Remember that all the options will be mentioned in the text in some way, but only one will completely answer the question. Tip number 3. Some multiple choice questions test your ability to identify the main idea of a paragraph as opposed to the supporting ideas. The main idea is the message the writer wants to communicate with the paragraph, and the supporting ideas are facts, examples, etc., which back up the main idea. We talked about the topic sentence and the main idea in our previous sessions a lot, and I just want to show you that topic sentence and the main idea can play an important role in finding our correct answers. Now let's go to our next tip. Tip number 4. Typically, the main idea is at the start of a paragraph in the opening sentences, but this is not always the case. So read the whole paragraph to form an opinion of the general message it is trying to communicate, and then look at the options to see which one paraphrases your opinion. The incorrect options are often mentioned in the paragraph as supporting ideas. Okay, now let's go our next tip. Tip number 5. Two of the options often will be eliminated easily. We use elimination process in order to answer multiple choice questions, and two of our options would be very easy to eliminate and get rid of them. Now let's go back to our steps. Step number 1, look at the title. The first thing we're going to do when answering the multiple choice questions is to look at the title in order to have a gist of the passage, what the passage is about. And then we're going to choose signals or keywords from the question step. Then we're going to look at the passage and find our keywords and read around them carefully in order to answer the question. And as our final step, we use the elimination process in order to find the correct answer. Now this is reading passage 3. Let me turn on my pen as well. Reading passage 3. We talked about this passage in our previous session, and in this session we're going to continue answering some multiple choice questions about neuroaesthetics. Okay, our title is about neuroaesthetics. Now let's go to our questions. Questions 27 to 30. And we have multiple choice questions. Questions 27. In the second paragraph, the writer refers to a shape matching test in order to illustrate. Okay, in the second paragraph, and as you see, we know where we should look for our answers. We don't need to look for keywords in order to find the relevant part of the text. Now let's go to our second paragraph. This is our first paragraph. I'm gonna eliminate this paragraph. Okay, this is our second paragraph. I'm going to read our second paragraph. Could the same approach also shed a light on abstract 20th century pieces? From Mondrian's geometrical blocks of color to Pollock's seemingly haphazard arrangements of splashed paint on canvas. Some people recommend that just scan and skim and find your keywords and read around keywords carefully. But in my opinion, it would be better to, in this situation, to just read the whole paragraph. It will give you more idea of what the passage is about, and you would be able to understand the paragraph completely and answer the questions. Now, let me continue. Again, I state that because it's a tutorial session, I'm reading it a lot. Just read by your eyes while you're practicing at home. Okay, now let's continue. The skeptics believe that people claim to like such works simply because they are famous. Okay, people like these kinds of work because they are famous. We certainly do have an inclination to follow the crowd, okay, when asked to make simple perceptual decisions such as mention a shape. Okay, mention a shape, and this is our keyword, to its rotated image, for example. People often choose a definitely wrong answer if they see others doing the same. Okay, people choose wrong answer if they see others doing the same. It is easy to imagine that this mentality would have even more impact on a fuzzy concept like art appreciation, where there is no right or wrong answer. Now let's go back to our options. Okay. Shape mention test and our second paragraph. Okay, our first choice is the subjective nature of art appreciation. Okay, we have something about art appreciation in this paragraph. The reliance of modern art on abstract forms. This is completely irrelevant. We had nothing about the reliance of modern art on abstract forms or a comparison between these two forms of art. Now, we can eliminate these choices very easily. Let's go to the next one. Our tendency to be influenced by the opinions of others. That's very close to our paragraph, and maybe it's our answer. But I'm still going to check our last option as well. A common problem encountered when processing visual data. Now, this is completely irrelevant, and as I said, two of our choices will be eliminated easily. Now, let's decide between A and C. The subjective nature of art appreciation, our tendency to be influenced by the opinions of others. In my opinion, the C is our correct answers, but I'm going to check the art appreciation as well. Okay, now let's go back. It is easy to imagine that this mentality would have even more impact on a fuzzy concept like art appreciation, where there is no right or wrong answer. Okay, we have art appreciation, but we have nothing about a subjective nature of art appreciation. So the art appreciation is just stated here, and it's not our answer. So it would be incorrect. Let's go to the next one. Angelina Holly Dolan's findings indicate that people, okay, this is the name of a scientist, and it's easy to scan and find in the passage. In this, our third paragraph, okay. I found it here. Now let's continue and read this paragraph. Responded to this debate by asking volunteers to view pairs of paintings, either the creations of famous abstract artists or the doodles of infants. Okay, chimps and elephants. They then had to judge which they preferred. Okay, we have something about preference between these types of art. A third of the paintings were given no captions, while many were labeled incorrectly. Volunteers might think they were viewing a chimp's messy brush strokes when they were actually seeing an acclaimed masterpiece. Okay? In each set of trials, volunteers generally preferred the work of renowned artists. Okay, volunteers, that sentence is very important. Generally preferred the work of renowned artists, even when they believed it was by an animal or a child. Okay. It seems that the viewer can sense the artist's vision in paintings. Artist's vision in paintings, that's very important, even if they can't explain why. Okay, let's go back to our options. Now, let's start from our first option. Mostly favor work of art which they know well. I'm a little bit suspicious about this one, so I just skip this option. Let's go to the next one. Hold fixed ideas about what makes a good work of art. No, we had nothing about fixed ideas, okay? So I will eliminate this option. are often misled by their initial expectations of a work of art. We had nothing about initial expectations. I will eliminate this option as well. Have the ability to perceive the intention behind works of art. Ability to perceive the intention behind works of art. That paraphrase of our last sentence, okay? Seems that the viewer can sense the artist's vision and artist's intentions, even if they can't explain why. Okay, let's go to our, this is our correct answer. And no solely favor works of art which they know well. No, this is correct, because when the masterpieces are not labeled and they even didn't have information about the owners of artifacts, they again preferred well-known artifacts. Okay, so this is incorrect. Let's go to the next question. Results of studies involving Robert Pepperell's pieces suggest that people, okay, it's easy to find the name of the scientist and pieces as our keyword and then answer questions. Now, let's go to the passage, and as you see, the questions are in order. And again, at the starting part of the paragraph, we have Robert Pepperell. An artist based on Cardiff University creates ambiguous works that are neither entirely abstract nor clearly representational. In one study, Pepperell and his collaborators asked volunteers to decide how powerful they considered an artwork to be, and whether they saw anything familiar in the piece. Okay, the longer they took to answer these questions, the more highly they rated the piece under scrutiny. Now, this sentence is very important. And the greater their neural activity, it would seem that the brain sees these images as puzzles, and the harder it is to decipher the meaning, the more rewarding is the moment of recognition. Let's go to our options. Suggest that people can appreciate a painting without fully understanding it. I'm a little suspicious about this. Find it satisfying to work out what a painting represents. We have something about satisfying in our last sentences. Very vitally in the time they spent looking at paintings. No, there was nothing about whether they very vitally in time looking for paintings. Now, this is incorrect. Generally prefer representational art to abstract art. No, it is completely irrelevant. We have to decide between these two options. Can appreciate a painting without fully understanding it and find it satisfying. Let's go back to our paragraph and read this sentence again. And the greater their neural activity, it would seem that the brain sees these images as puzzles, and the harder it is to decipher the meaning, the more rewarding is the moment of recognition. Okay, rewarding could be paraphrased with satisfying, and B is our correct answer. We have nothing about fully understanding it. Okay, let's go to our last question. What do the experiments described in the fifth paragraph? And again, we have I told you to just look at the fifth paragraph. Suggest about paintings of Mondrian, and this time we're gonna look for the paintings of Mondrian. Okay, let's go back to this paragraph. And what about artists such as Mondrian, whose paintings consist exclusively of horizontal and vertical lines encasing blocks of color? Mondrian's works are deceptively simple. Okay, are deceptively simple, but eye tracking studies confirm that they are meticulously composed, and that simply rotating a piece radically changes the way we view it. Okay, with the originals, volunteers' eyes tended to stay longer on certain places in the image, but with the altered versions, they would fit across a piece more rapidly. As a result, the volunteers considered the altered versions less pleasurable when they later relate the work. In these kinds of multiple choice questions, you have to read the whole paragraph and then eliminate your options in order to find the correct answer. Okay, they are more carefully put together than they appear. That seems to be our true answer. I circled this, but I'm going to check our other options. they can be interpreted in a number of different ways. No, there was nothing about interpreting them in a number of different ways. They challenge our assumptions about shape and color. Did you see anything about a challenge in this paragraph? No, and this would be eliminated. They are easier to appreciate than many other abstract words. Again, there was nothing about whether they are easy or harder to appreciate them other than abstract words. Now, this is incorrect. And that is the end of this example. Now, let's go to next slide and have another example as well. Okay, I chose this example from IELTS Cambridge 3, and as you see, there is no topic sentence. In this case, just read the first sentence of paragraph 1. The role of government in environmental management is difficult but inescapable. It's about environmental management. Now, let's go back to our options. Okay. Question 23. Research completed in 1982 found that in the United States, soil erosion. Okay, now we're going to look for United States and soil erosion and also scan 1982. Now, let's go back to our paragraphs. In the first paragraph, I don't see 1982, and in the second paragraph, we have until 1980s. Now, let's go to our third paragraph and just scan. Okay, I find 1982. Now, let's just read around 1982 carefully. The United States, where the most careful measurements have been done, discovered in 1982 that about 1/5 of its farmland was losing topsoil at a rate likely to diminish the soil's productivity. Okay, the country subsequently embarked upon a program to convert 11% of its cropped land to meadow or forest. Topsoil in India and China is vanishing much faster than in America. Okay, let's go to our options. Reduce the productivity of farmland by 20%. What else suspicious about that? It was almost as severe as in India and China. No, it was just like as same with China and India. This choice will be eliminated. It was causing significant damage to 20% of farmland. I just leave this option. Could be reduced by converting cultivated land to meadow or forest. Let me go back to the passage, cultivated land. We had 11% of its cropped land to meadow or forest. Be careful about this. It's cropped land and not cultivated land. It is very important to have a good knowledge of vocabulary and being able to recognize the differences between the words. As a result, this choice is incorrect. And also reduce the productivity of farmland by 20%. Now, let's go and check the productivity of farmland. We had 1/5, and 1/5 is equal to 20% of its farmland was losing topsoil at a rate likely to diminish the soil's productivity. We have nothing about the quantity of productivity. It's about 20% of farmland. Okay, as a result, the reduced productivity of farmland by 20% is incorrect, and damage to 20% of farmland, and our C is our correct answer. Now let's go to question 24. By the mid-1980s, farmers in Denmark. Okay, we can scan Denmark and mid-1980s in the passage. Okay, let's go back to our paragraph. Just look for the mid-90s and Denmark. Fertilizer use doubled in Denmark in the period 1960s to 1985 and increased in the Netherlands by 150%. Okay, the quantity of pesticides applied has risen by 69% in 1979 to 1984 in Denmark, for example, with the rise of 115% in the frequency of application in the 3 years from 1981. Now let's go to our options. Denmark, mid-1980s, used 50% less fertilizer than Dutch farmers. We have nothing about Dutch farmers, or as far as I remember, there wasn't such a comparison. Used twice as much fertilizer as they had in 1960. And that could be our correct answer. Applied fertilizer much more frequently than in 1960. No, this isn't correct. More than doubled the amount of pesticides they used in just 3 years. Let's go back to our passage. As you see, fertilizer use doubled in Denmark in the period 1960 to 1985, and by mid-1985 we had this increase and it was doubled. And increased in Netherlands by 150%. Okay, in Netherlands it increased by 150%, but we don't have comparison between Denmark and Netherlands. The quantity of pesticides applied has risen to, okay, by 69% in 1975 to 1984 in Denmark. It increased 69%. For example, with a rise of 115% in frequency of application in the 3 years from 1981. Okay. Let's go back to our options. So we don't have anything about more than doubled the amount of pesticide in just 3 years. This would be incorrect, and B is our correct answer. Used 50% less fertilizer than Dutch farmers. Again, we don't have a comparison. We have specific numbers for Dutch farmers and farmers in Denmark, but there is no comparison, and as a result, B is our correct answer. Now, let's go to our next question. Which one of the following increased in New Zealand after 1984? Okay, let's farm incomes, use of fertilizers, or stocking and farm diversification. These choices are very short. In case they are short, you can just look at them and review them in order to have an idea of what you should be looking for. Okay, let's go to and find New Zealand. Okay, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, some efforts were made to reduce farm subsidies. The most dramatic example was that of New York, which scrapped most farm support in 1984. Okay, scrapped most farm support. A study of environmental effects conducted in 1993 found that the end of fertilizer subsidies had been followed by a fall in fertilizer use. We have fall in fertilizer use, a fall compounded by the decline in the world commodity prices, which cut farm incomes. Okay, let's go back to our options. We had cut farm incomes, so this is incorrect. Use of fertilizer, this is incorrect. And we have to decide between these two choices. Let's go back to passage and continue reading. The removal of subsidies also stopped land curing and ore stocking. Okay, so this is ore stocking also stopped, and D is our correct answer. The writer refers to some rich countries as being less enlightened than New Zealand because less enlightened. Now let's just look for less entitled and rich countries. We finished paragraph D. Now, no, it's not the end of paragraph D. We have the rest of the paragraph D in this slide. Now, let's just look for our keywords. You can even pause the video and find them, and just skim and find them. Okay, in the less enlightened countries and in the European Union, the trend has been to reduce rather than eliminate subsidies, and to introduce new payments to encourage farmers to treat their land in environmentally friendlier ways. Okay, or to leave it fallow. It may sound strange, but such payments need to be higher than the existing incentives for farmers to grow food crops. Farmers, however, dislike being paid to do nothing. In several countries, they have become interested in the possibility of using fuel produced from crop residues, either as a replacement for petrol, as ethanol, or as a fuel power stations. As biomass, such fuels produce far less carbon dioxide than coal or oil and absorb carbon dioxide as they grow. They are therefore less likely to contribute to the greenhouse effect, but they are rarely competitive with fossil fuels unless subsidized, and growing them does no less environmental harm than other crops. As you see, I read the whole paragraph because I need to eliminate lots of options. Sometimes a multiple choice are a little bit challenging and tricky answer, and only by reading the paragraph in whole and eliminating options you can reach the correct answer. Now let's go back to our options. Okay, question 26. They disapprove of paying farmers for not cultivating the land, but they weren't disapprove. They like to pay to farmers, so this is incorrect. Their new fuel crops are as harmful as the ones they have replaced. That's also incorrect because they produce far less carbon dioxide than coal or oil and absorb carbon dioxide as they grow. They are therefore less likely to contribute to greenhouse effect, so they are more environmentally friendlier. This is also incorrect as well. Now, their policies do not recognize the long-term benefits of ending subsidies. This is a general option and could be our answer. Let's check the D. They have not encouraged their farmers to follow environmentally friendly practices. No, that's incorrect. At the start of the paragraph, we had the sentence that they encouraged their farmers. They even didn't cut the subsidies. So C is our correct answer. Now let's go to question 27. Writer believes that Uruguay round agreement on trade will. Okay, let's just scan and find this agreement in our passage. Okay, let's scan this paragraph to see whether we can find this Uruguay or not, because it's spelled in capital letters. It would be easy to find it, and there is nothing in this paragraph. Just skip and go to next paragraph. As a result of Uruguay round of world trade negotiations, okay, is likely to be a reduction of 33% in the average levels of farm subsidies paid by the rich countries in 1986 to 1990. Okay. Some of the world's food production will move from Western Europe to regions where subsidies are lower or non-existent, such as the former communist countries and parts of the developing world. Some environmentalists worry about this outcome. It will undoubtedly mean more pressure to convert natural habitat into farmland, but it will also have many desirable environmental effects. The intensity of farming in the rich world should decline, and the use of chemical inputs will diminish. Crops are more likely to be grown in the environments to which they are naturally suited, and more farmers in poor countries will have the money and the incentive to manage their land in ways that are sustainable in the long run. That is important. To feed an increasingly hungry world, farmers need every incentive to use their soil and water effectively and efficiently. Our final sentence was a concluding sentence, and we have a general idea about the paragraph. Now let's go and answer the questions. Encourages more sustainable farming practices in the long run. This is just our concluding paragraph. And it could be our answer. Let's go and check our other options. Do more harm than good to the international environment. No, that isn't correct. Increase pressure to cultivate land in rich countries. Be more beneficial to rich than poor countries. No, there isn't a comparison. As you see, I highlighted, it's not more beneficial to rich countries than poor countries. Now let's just check these options as well. I'm a little suspicious about this, but I'm 95% sure that this is my correct answer. So I chose this and go back to passage and check this, but this would be eliminated as well. Increase pressure to cultivate land in rich countries. Let's go to the passage and look for rich countries, okay, such as the former communist countries and parts of the developing world. Some for about this outcome, it will undoubtedly mean more pressure to convert natural habitat into farmland. Okay, but we have pressure about natural habitat into farmland. We don't have anything about rich countries or even poor countries. We have rich countries here in 1986 to 1990s of the world's food production. No, this option couldn't be correct. Now we answered this question as well. Let's go to our last questions. In some tests, at the end of a passage, you will have chosen a title questions. From the list of below, choose the most suitable title for reading passage 2. After answering all of your questions, you would get a general idea about the passage, okay? And you need to choose the most general one, okay? Now, let's start and look at our options. Soil erosion. Soil erosion is a detail. We had about soil erosion in our second paragraph, so it could be our answer. It couldn't be our answer, okay? So I just eliminated. I said that it's important to choose a general title. Fertilizer and pesticides, the way forward. It's again is related to a specific paragraph, or farm subsidies. This is again related to a specific paragraph. Environmental management, increasing the world's food supply. Increasing the world's food supply is again only related to our last paragraph. So I eliminate this and answer this question. Environmental management is the more general option that we can choose for this heading. Now we answered all of our questions. As you see, eliminating our options is very important in multiple choice questions, and of course general English plays a decisive role as well. But if you adopt and apply this strategy, I'm sure that it would be useful for you. Okay, now let me turn off my pen as well. This is end of our 5th session. I hope it would be useful for you. If you like this video, please like this video and leave your comments. And if you have any questions, you can ask your questions in the comment sections. I will answer all of your questions. Thank you very much. See you later.